Ahoy hoy, we're on. How are you guys doing today? Oh man, we're in for some good stuff today. We're going over Second Nephi 2, and verse 9 is where we're going to start, even though that's kind of where we left off. And as always, I'd kind of like to give more background than is necessary. That's what I want to do. So let's get going. So when we're talking about the temple, one of the things that I'd always like to emphasize is that symbolism. I think that there's some things that are how they are, but there's also a bunch of things that can be seen in multiple views. I'm looking at it from a very specific view. I'm looking at things through the temple view and through trying to understand Lehi's under what he's actually saying. So my point is, there's a lot of ands. So when you say this is what something means, but doesn't it mean that? Oh, I think and it can mean that. I think it can mean that and that. So that's really my point that I'm getting at. So the first verse and Second Nephi 2, verse 9, the first verse that we're reading, wherefore he is the first fruits unto God, inasmuch as he shall make intercession for all children of men, and they that believe in him shall be saved. This is a common expression, first fruits. There's the first fruits of the resurrection. There's the first fruits of a bunch of things. What are the first fruits? They're let me pull it up. Man, I'm glad that I was able to hide everything that I wanted to. Okay. First fruits are the Hebrew bikurim. I'm not saying that right for sure. Bikurim. I'm not sure. It's the wave offering brought by the priest before Yahweh. So it's part of an ascent ritual. It's the but it's also the first to rise before the face of God, the first to ascend into the Holy of Holies, carrying the rest of humanity in as a symbolic offering. But I think it's also more. So there's some pretty clear meanings of what it has meant in the past, what people can see it mean. But I'd like to dive into some other understandings we can get of it. And I was talking about the fruit before. I was talking about how the flesh of the fruit can mean multiple things. It can mean the flesh of the fruit, the flesh of the animal, and the flesh of the bread, meaning the crumb of the bread. And I would also like to dive into some other analogies with the fruit, how Christ is the fruit. So how is Christ the first fruit unto God? Well, let's go to First Nephi 11 for that. So I'm going to share my screen, and right now we're on Second Nephi 2, but I'm going to jump to First Nephi 11. And this is when Nephi is shown in vision the tree of life, and he asks questions of the angel, of the spirit. So he was caught away in the spirit of the Lord and to an exceeding high mountain. So this is a temple vision. This is stuff going on in the temple. And the spirit asks him, and I'm going to summarize. I'm going to say it in my own words, but he says, behold, what desirest thou? What do you want to see, Nephi? And Nephi says he wants to see what his father saw. And the spirit says, do you believe that thy father saw the tree? And Nephi says, I believe all the words of my father. And this is kind of surprising if you don't know the background of what the tree means. But the spirit goes super happy at this point. He says, Hosanna, blessed art thou because thou believest in the Son of the Most High God. So, and thou shalt behold the things which thou hast desired. So the spirit kind of like overreacts, one would think, from saying, do you believe in the tree? So, and do you believe all the words of your father? So here comes Nephi, and the spirit shows him a tree like the tree that his father saw. And after he had seen the tree, he says, "Now what do you want to see?" Let me see. I said unto the tree, I behold that thou showest me a tree. And he says, "What desirest thou?" And then here Nephi says, "I want to know what it means. Uh, I'm I I'm confused." And he says, So what do you want to know what the tree means? Look. And I looked and I saw he had gone, and he saw Jerusalem, and he saw Nazareth, and he saw a virgin who was exceedingly white, fair and white. And of course, these are puns on Nephi's name. And I saw the heavens open, and the angel came down and stood before him. And I said, Nephi, so the Spirit again asked, Nephi, what do you see? And he said unto him, a virgin, most beautiful and fair. And he kind of talks about a few other things, like, knowest thou the condescension of God? I don't know everything. And he said, once again, here's the virgin, and that's the mother of the Son of God. And it came to pass that she was carried away in the Spirit. And then he again beheld a virgin bearing a child in her arms. And then the angel goes back to the tree. Knowest thou the meaning of the tree? And he says, it's the love of God. So let's make some connections here. You have Nephi asking, getting shown the tree, and the tree is then connected with the virgin, with Mary in this instance. And then the next thing we know is there's the virgin carrying a child in her arms. And so you have the mother of Christ holding Christ. And this is connected with the tree. And eventually we're going to say, what does the tree have? The tree has fruit. I don't know if it's in this one, but the tree is carrying the fruit. So yeah, we don't have to dive in, go through everything right now, but the tree is carrying the fruit, and that is Christ. So the fruit is Christ. The tree is the virgin. And there's, I want to add this one because I put it there so you can see it. So in Egyptian culture, one of the very strong symbols was the symbol of Isis holding her son, the Pharaoh, while Isis is sitting down. She is the throne for Pharaoh. So she is her symbol is the throne. In this scenario, Mary is the throne for Christ and a symbol of the ascension. Once again, symbols can mean multiple things, but the virgin in this instance is the person carrying Christ. So when we talk about the first fruits unto God, in one instance, we are very directly talking about Christ as the fruit, which is that which will make men happy. And we're going to actually run into that again in this verse coming up. Okay. What do we want to talk about? Let's start reading. And because of the intercession for all, men can't come unto God, wherefore they stand in the presence of him to be judged of him according to the truth and holiness which is in him. Wherefore the ends of the law which the Holy One hath given unto the inflicting of the punishment which is affixed, which punishment that is affixed, and it is in opposition to that of the happiness which is affixed, to answer the ends of the atonement. So there's two things here, the ends of the law and the ends of the atonement. And we talked about the law earlier, how Christ sacrificed himself to answer the ends of the law. And we talked about the law even earlier, that men are instructed sufficiently that they know good from evil, and the law is given unto men. So this is all something that the temple, the person going through the temple will have seen. They will have seen and gotten an explanation of what the law is. And they know that by the law, they cannot continue through the temple. They cannot arrive to God because they are not perfect. So Lehi says, there's a punishment affixed to the law, and you're not going to do it. You're not going to arrive. And there's the atonement. And so this is we're talking about a veil scene. We're talking about where God is standing there and he's saying, you're going to be judged by what you've done. And you cannot get past. You have uh, punishments which you must go through because that's what the law demands. And the atonement is the thing which will let you get through. But until then, you're not getting through to God. So then Lehi starts talking about something else. And he starts talking about opposition in all things. And I think he's kind of expounding for the sake of his sons, uh, specifically Jacob, who's a very wise son. And he starts talking, and you can see right here that this is, if not so, my firstborn in the wilderness. You know, he goes back to that. So he's clearly addressing Jacob. That if there wasn't an opposition, you couldn't have righteousness, nor wickedness, nor holiness, nor misery. And it's kind of an interesting point that he brings up. I think that he got kind of triggered when he saw, triggered in a good way. I when I see something that causes something else to occur, I use the word triggered, even though I'm not saying it in like an awoke sense. But Lehi was thinking about the ends of the law and the ends of the atonement. And when he thought that in his mind, it immediately jumped to or triggered, and he started thinking about opposition. So if there is no opposition, it should be, instead of two things, it's going to be one thing, and it's one body that must remain dead. Lehi understands inactive, without life. Lehi understands that life, ruach, I don't know how to say it in Hebrew, means that there's an opposition, a tension. If there's no life, then it's just bland. It is what it is. It doesn't move. It doesn't change. And he kind of goes into creation, which is an interesting transition. He mentions creation here, and then he continues talking about it with the Adam and Eve story. And that should ring some bells. It should say, why is the Adam and Eve story the most important thing, the thing that he goes to? So let's keep going. But he talks about if it didn't have opposition, then there was no reason for the creation. And if you say there's no law, you're also saying there's no sin. And if there's no sin, there's no righteousness. And if there's no righteousness, there's no happiness. And I should really underline happiness, because this is really the key to it all. And if there's no righteousness nor happiness, there's no punishment, no mercy. And if these things are not, there is no God. And if there's no God, we are not, neither the earth, for these things could have been no creation of things, neither to act nor to be acted upon. Wherefore all things must have vanished away. Happiness is a key here, and we'll talk about it, I'm sure, many times. It's a very important word. So, and actually, let's dive partially into it right now. When I talk about happiness, I think some people think of pleasure, or what is it called? Serotonin? What is it called when, like, you see something, like you're scrolling on videos and you're like, ooh, that activated the pleasure sensors in my brain. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about happiness, joy. Man is that they might have joy. And I'm talking about the overall understanding of what makes God happy, and God trying to transmit that to us. God understands what made him happy, and he's trying to teach us how we can be happy. And that is the key to life. That we could exist, we could even live this life in a good life. And at the end of this life, we could say, I actually don't want the challenges that come from happiness, because God understands their challenges. I just want pleasure. And I think God will be Like, okay, you can have just pleasure. You can have things that make you momentarily happy, but you're not going to be long-term happy. You're not going to understand the highs and lows that you can have. You can just be here instead of here. And if that's what you want, you got it. So the whole point is that happiness is a very key thing, and we're going to contrast it here down here. So let's keep going. And now, my sons, I speak unto you these things for your profit and learning. For there's a God. Sorry, these things exist, and He hath created all things, both the heavens and the earth, and all things that in them are, both things to act and things to be acted upon. Important thoughts here as well. Okay, so now we're getting to what I was talking about, and to bring about his eternal purposes in the end of man, after he had created our first parents, and the beasts of the field, and the fowls of the air, and in fine all things which are created, it must needs be that there was an opposition, even the forbidden fruit in opposition to the tree of life, the one being sweet, and the other bitter. So one of these fruits is sweet and the other bitter. One will let you know about the difference between happiness, true and good and evil, and the other one bringing you about eternal life. So let's jump ahead, because this is some interesting stuff, and I want to get to one thought. So Lehi, according to the things which I've read, must needs suppose. First of all, he read them, which is very interesting. So this is probably on the brass plates. Jonah Barnes talks about all this. Must needs suppose that an angel of God, according to that which is written, had fallen from heaven. Wherefore he became a devil, having sought that which was evil before God. And this is really interesting, because Lehi is very clear with some stuff that's only hinted at in the Bible. And we have a lot of tradition and other understandings of the Adam and Eve story, but Lehi is very clear here what he understands according to what he has read. And he continues, because he had fallen from heaven and had become miserable forever. Miserable is an very important word as well. So he sought the misery of all mankind. So let's contrast them. God is trying to create happiness. Satan is trying to create misery for mankind. Misery is related to the Hebrew word for evil. So as we keep going, we'll see that he sought also the misery of all mankind. Wherefore he said unto Eve, yea, even that old serpent, who is the devil, and this is things he had read, who is the father of all lies, wherefore he said, partake of the forbidden fruit, and ye shall not die, but ye shall be as God, knowing good and evil, good and misery. And after Adam and Eve had partaken of the forbidden fruit, they were driven out of the garden to till the earth. So, man, oh man, we are hitting so many interesting things. Till the earth is also super important. Why? Because that's a priestly duty. The way that it's said to till the earth, it's not just let's put things over a little and see if okay, there we go. Tilling the earth is not just a physical act. It's also a priestly duty. And what is it? It is, let me see if I can pull up the actual, it's the sacrificial work. So I don't have the words on me. I have everything earlier, but yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not doing a great job on this one, but anyway, the whole point is that this is a very it says after they had partaken, they were driven out of the garden, and they're saying, you're now in the outer courtyard. You're now in the ulam. You are doing priestly work, It's important that you do this work so you can go back to Eden. So it restarts the chain. So immediately after getting kicked out, the circle begins. That's why it's the eternal round. It's as you get kicked out, you also work your way back. So even though in one sense it seems like a line, then you turn around and go back, it's a round. Um, yeah, I don't know how much more I want to say, but I really wanted to emphasize the fruit part because it comes up over and over. There's the forbidden fruit. There's the fruit of the tree of life, um, and there's just so much going on. Uh, I think once again, I want to emphasize the word "and" for today. So when you see some symbolism, let's say and then we're going to be diving into the story of Adam and Eve a little more next time. And I think that it's just one of those incredible things that if you've been through the temple, you're so many corollaries with the story. And it's incredible that for some reason we've been, at least I've been reading this and I've been seeing this and being like, that's an interesting story, Lehi. But he's actually trying to tell us in the story of the temple. So you go through the temple, and as you go through it, you're going to be hitting it in the same order that Lehi's hitting it. Lehi might pause and talk about things for a little longer, or you might expound on some stuff. But he's trying to tell you that this is the path that you'll be taking. So I think that this is at least when I read it, I see him telling Jacob, right, this is where you're at. We've been talking about the law and we've been talking about um, a few other things. And now I want you to be aware of what the next step is, which is you're going to be meeting at the veil and you're going to be answering the ends of the law and you're going to need atonement to do it. So let's go through and hit it again. Here's the story of Adam and Eve, and here's why it is so important. So anyway, read your scriptures today. If you haven't had the chance to read your Book of Mormon, I would suggest reading the Book of Mormon. I would suggest uh, getting on your knees, praying, looking at the scriptures, and of course, I would suggest learning some Hebrew as well. But I need to do that as well. So that's my next step. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great one, and think about the tree of life. Let that ponder.